Hi, my name is Glenn Prescott. My wife Janet and I are among the newest members of the Chancellor family. It is my honor to have been asked to join Pastor Cameron and Pastor Larry in teaching this section of John and Acts for our Connect groups. I look forward to getting to know each of you in the coming days. In this second week, Connect groups will be exploring John chapter 10, verses 22 through 40. I want to encourage your group to read the passage in its entirety, maybe a couple of times, before this time of discussion. Last week, Pastor Cameron talked about the Feast of Tabernacles, or the Feast of Booths. This was one of the Mosaic festivals looking back to God's leadership related to the Exodus from Egypt. This week, we look at another Jewish observance, but this time a more recent festival that looks forward to the coming Messiah. In John chapter 10, beginning in verse 22, Jesus has yet another encounter with the Jewish leaders during the Feast of Dedication, or the Festival of Lights. This is more commonly known to us as Hanukkah. We know this holiday as it occurs during our Christmas season, and John even goes to mention that it is winter. Now, while that is a reference to the time of year, it was also a revelation of the spiritual condition and climate of his audience. Hanukkah was a newer, non-Mosaic festival that memorialized the cleansing and rededication of the temple in 164 BC following the desecration by the Syrian forces of Antiochus Epiphanes. This was prophesied in Daniel chapter 11 and referenced again in Matthew 24 as the abomination that causes desolation. This anticipated messianic dream led to numerous Jewish uprisings until they were ultimately crushed by the Roman destruction of the temple and Jerusalem in AD 70. The Jewish leaders were again trying to trap Jesus as they continued to attempt their justification for putting him to death. In verse 24, they asked, "How long will you keep us in suspense? If you are the Christ, tell us plainly." Now we must remember, Christ is not Jesus' last name, but actually his title. It means anointed one and appears about 350 times in the New Testament. In the Old Testament, the term Mashiach carried the same idea of anointed one and was used regularly with prophets, priests, and kings. In a few instances, it was used without the definite article to refer to the coming Messiah. Jesus responded by saying, "I did tell you, but you did not believe, and you do not believe because you are not my sheep." The Jews pressed Jesus hard for a bold and specific response in contrast to his earlier presentation of himself through images and figures of speech. But obviously, he did not tell them plainly to their satisfaction. Jesus reintroduces the shepherd motif in verse 26 to emphasize not only do the sheep hear and obey, but in the shepherd they also find their security. In the discussion guide for this week, you will be directed to additional passages that speak to the security of our salvation. We've also provided links for 2 additional discussion guides on soul competency and grace alone that will hopefully provide additional understanding for this important topic. As the Jews began picking up rocks with which to stone Jesus, he said, "I've shown you many great miracles. For which one are you going to stone me?" They responded that, "We are not stoning you for any of these, but for blasphemy, because you, a mere man, claim to be God." Jesus' identification and description of his work with that of the Father once again produced the same result: hostility open hostility. Jesus turned the charge back on these Jewish leaders and challenged them to provide a rationale for the use of the word God, like it is used in Psalm 82:6. Jesus' logic was clear. If your law calls humans God, and the scriptures cannot be broken, meaning that they are utterly reliable, then where is your problem? Jesus' rebuttal to their intent to stone him tied them in knots. And once again, he eluded their grasp because it was not yet his time to go to the cross. As your Connect groups gather, review, and respond to the discussion guide this week, it is my prayer that this passage will call our attention to what salvation means to each one of us and how we can be an encouragement to those who are diligently seeking answers to life's urgent questions.